Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online, and I've got with me the beautiful Lee Bannister. Wow. Hello, Lee. We-
Hello, how are you doing?
Hello. We're going all the way out to Norway today, although you will hear he is British. And Lee is just, well, first of all, such a dear friend and such a gift to my life. I love this man. But what does he do in the world? Well, he has created this program called 7 Steps to Confidence. Prior to depriving us all in the UK of your skills on a full-time basis, he was working as one of the leading hypnotists in the UK, and doing like amazing work, I know, in carriages, in kicks. He's also created this program called Massage Without Hands, where he puts you in a beautiful state of mind to make you feel like you've had a massage without having a massage. So in these times, really, really cool service to be providing there. And now, well, when he's allowed to, he will be back in the UK to run some clinics. So if you're lucky enough to see him, do. Otherwise, if you're out in Norway, obviously you can see him there. And he does all sorts of fabulous stuff online as well. So I'm really, really thrilled to pieces that you're with me on Zoom today. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I'm going to start with the question, and I know you've taken Inspired Stage in London before, but let's start with the question that we ask all our online speakers, which is, if you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
If I had to share my wisdom with the world, I would say, indeed, that after experiencing and working with maybe 10,000 clients, sessions or more, I've realized that the biggest sort of 3 linchpins that are holding people back are often the idea that we're not good enough, and that we're not lovable sometimes. And also the third piece is that we think sometimes that we can't do it. We think that success is out there for other people, but we can't get those things. And I think the wisdom that I would want to share is, if you're thinking thoughts or you're feeling feelings, or you in any way think that you're not good enough, or that you're not lovable, or you're not deserved, or you're not worthy, the principle of this message, where you think someone else can do it but you can't do it, it's just a faulty wiring, and it's not true, because you are good enough and you are lovable, and if it's humanly possible, it's possible by you.
Lovely. Oh, that's a really beautiful message to start us off. Do you think one of those is more prevalent in people than others? So you mentioned the 3 that are like, you know, our faulty wiring and our common forms of faulty wiring. Which one do you think is the most prevalent?
That's a great question. I think the first one comes up when we're holding ourselves back, typically. When we want to do something but we don't do it. When we have an idea but we don't take the actions we need to do. When we're having self-doubt, or we're holding ourselves back, or for some reason we don't take that action. I think deep down, like there's this idea, there's this notion, there's this lie that we're not good enough. And I think that is at the root of someone who wants to get to whatever next level they are. They will find that they've hit themselves against this glass ceiling again. And it's often the idea that they're not good enough, or they're not deserved, or they're not loving, or they're not, So I think probably if I had to hang my hat on just one, I would say it's the notion and the lie that we're not good enough, because sometimes that idea of us not being good enough is the reason that we think that we don't deserve love, or is the reason that we think, we can't get the right partner, or all those types of things. Yeah. So if I had to have one, I'd say I'd go with "you're not good enough" as a lie, as a label. But in all the work that I've done, it's often these 3 things. No matter what's blocking you, we can build up above those things. But it's usually one of those 3. In all the sessions, we can point back to, okay, where did I think that I'm not good enough here, or why am I not, like. In many ways, like lovable is like a similar thing. It's like a deep self-esteem about deservingness, about attracting that relationship, and ultimately having that wonderful, loving relationship with yourself as well. It isn't just about someone else a lot of the time. But to answer your question, I'll have to, if I had to hang my hat on it, I won't be a politician and not answer. I'd say the idea is that you're not good enough.
Okay, well, we can talk about all three of them because I know all three are very relevant to people indeed. But let's start with the most popular one, the not good enough. If you are in that place, and you did allude to this slightly, well, first of all, how do you know that you're in that place? Because you might think, for example, I want to climb Kilimanjaro, but I'm 100 pounds overweight and it's never going to happen. I don't, physically just can't do it. And by the way, I'm asthmatic as well, so I won't be able to breathe when I'm at the top. So if that, if you had something like that was a physical issue, how could you, is it true that you're not good enough, or could you counter that?
Well, I think what's interesting is that brings up another sort of sub part of this, right? Because ultimately all transformation and all success is not sort of a linear thing, because they're all sort of interlinked with different components and different patterns. And so the thing that comes to mind there is what we're looking to do in my program, 7 Ways to Confidence and Success. It's about how do we create the mindset, the mind power of being the highest version of ourselves, and success also can be an internal feeling, not just an external thing. So when we're looking at, that external thing, the couple of things that spring to mind, two things that spring to mind with what you're saying there, Shay. The first one is that what we think about, we bring about. So what we continually internalize, we project as a self. We're like taking our image of what we think is true, and we're planting it in front of us to go and walk into it continually every single day. So if that's something that we want, then we want to continue to do that. Yes. And one of the ways that we do that is we affirm of what we want and think about who we are being, as opposed to what we think we can't be. So what we project, what we say to ourselves, also sort of manifests in many ways. So we have to be mindful of what we're saying to ourselves as one piece. And we also have another part of our brain, which is like a prover part. Our mind wants to prove that we are right.
Yes.
So even if it's at our own detriment, if that makes sense. So we need to be aware of all of these sort of moving pieces. And then the first thing is, if we are, we have certain challenges, we have certain blocks with health or feelings or emotions, we want to look at the idea of possibility that this is solvable. And not only is this solvable, but this is probable. And then not only is this probable, we expect it. Because if we approach it from that mindset, then we're giving ourselves the best chance before we start. I often say we are, it's one thing to say I'm committed to doing something, but committing to your commitment is the harder piece. Yeah. It's like saying, when I get to Christmas, I'm going to quit smoking, or when I get to my birthday, I'm not going to drink for 2 weeks. And then when we get to Christmas, we go, well, actually, I'll do it on my birthday. Or we get to the birthday, we say, actually, I'll do it next Christmas. So one thing is like the commitment, if that makes sense. Yeah. And the second thing is committing to that commitment. So we have to be mindful that when we start a process of goal getting or achieving our goals or setting out with an intention, we have to make sure that we don't blindfold ourselves before we start. If we go into a process of like having an attitude of like, well, we'll sort of see, it's probably not possible anyway, we're sort of like shooting ourselves in the foot before we start. We're getting on the escalators and we're trying to run the wrong way, So, it's like
it's a great visual.
Escalators, right? And give us, all of our energy moving towards what we want, as opposed to being sort of a bit blocked before we even start. So to answer your question, now I've gone around the houses a little bit here.
No, it's beautiful. I love it.
But the thing is, we need to look at something, in terms of what are we in control of? If we want to start taking some steps, there are certain things like even now in the universe, right? A lot of people are fearful right now. A lot of people are stuck right now. A lot of people are uncertain right now. A lot of people are going through all sorts of challenges. And there's certain pieces that we can't control. Just like what you were mentioning with your story, like there's certain things that they may or may not be able to control.
Correct.
So what we do is we start with the things that we can control. When we start to build that into a habit, and building that habit is the thing that's going to help you get to where you want to get to in the end. Or it certainly give you the best chance if that thing isn't something that's easily attainable. But what we don't want to do is blindfold ourselves, hold ourselves back before we even get started.
Wow, so much to unpick in that. You talked first actually about affirmations and affirming things to yourself. And when you affirm, you bring things into being. So that's a wonderful concept. Let's start with this one. How do you affirm things to yourself? If you want to bring something into practice, how do you start doing that consciously?
Well, to do that consciously, the first thing we need to do is to think about like what we want, but also have an awareness of what we don't want. So we need to start to be mindful of waking up in the moment and listening to what we're saying, because basically, depending on which books you read, we're taking on board between 30,000 and 100,000 thoughts every single day.
Wow.
So that's a lot of thoughts, right?
Right.
And if we're having these thoughts, we want to say, are these thoughts helping us? So when we're saying things to ourselves, when we become conscious of these moments, and we have an amazing opportunity right now to become more conscious, because we have had, the amygdala in our brain is freaking out and going into fear. It's making us reflect. It's everything you used to do, you're not allowed to do anymore. It's making us have introspection. It's making us have insight. And it's the insight that creates the difference on the world with the eyesight. Insight creates eyesight. So, the goal on the outside that we want to achieve is only created first with insight. Insight creates eyesight. So you need to see it, or you need to feel it and sense it before you go and get it. So with that being in mind, we're looking at, well, how do you attract it? How do you attract it starts in two ways at this level of consciousness. We want to get rid of the things that are not helping us. So, for example, if we're saying, I know that I was with a partner at a point in my life, and she was always saying, I'm clumsy, I'm clumsy, I'm clumsy. And it was quite cute and very funny. She'd be walking down the corridor, she'd bump into doors, she'd be, oh, I'm so clumsy, I'm so clumsy. I mean, she could walk through a door and bump into the door frame. It was pretty
Oh, bless her.
and she found it quite amusing. It was, And then one day, the story was like, do you like doing this, or would you actually want to stop it? If you had a choice, would you like to stop this? And this goes the same for, am I shy, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm not good enough, or whatever of these terrible affirmations are that we can sometimes say to ourselves. So in this case, it was stop saying I'm clumsy. And for the moment that she stopped saying I'm clumsy, then her life changed in that respect. She stopped bumping into things. So your subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is the part of your mind that's underneath the iceberg. It's the part of your mind that's not with us right now. It's the part of your mind that's keeping your heartbeat going and regulating your blood pressure and doing all these incredible things. It functions without you being aware. It functions without you knowing. It knows all your memories, your beliefs, your values. It knows everything about you. And it's there just sitting on the sideline, listening to you telling yourself and affirming the same story all the time.
Yes.
So if we actually want to change the story and change our life, then ultimately the first thing we need to do is to stop saying the I ams that limit us. Because the brain defends it with all its might. It defends it with the primal mind. It wants to keep you in the same box. And Einstein says we're boxed in by the boundary conditions of our thinking. So it wants us to be fixed. It wants to defend it. If you think of it, it's like fight or flight. It's like defending the part of you that you don't want. It's another way of thinking of this, if you speak to a smoker and you say, why do you smoke? Sometimes someone who's labeled themselves a smoker, I am a smoker, then will defend with all their might, and they'll get all really upset about it, as opposed to recognizing it's just a habit, it's just something they're currently doing and they can change it. But when we self-identify with something, our brain looks to block us in. So the first piece is we need to spot with awareness these things that are holding us back. And then the second piece is we then need to start to affirm not who we are, but who we dream of being.
Yes.
Who are we being? I am being this. I'm on the path to that. And that picture of not where you were, but who you're going to become in the process. And I am that. I am, I can, I will, I must, I trust. I can, I can now turned around becomes one. Now turned around is one. I won because I decided I can, I will, I do, I must, I trust. And then we get to the steps. And of course, we have to enjoy the process, because if we just focus on this thing, we get there and we could feel empty. So there's philosophies that we must enjoy along the route.
Mm. Well, how, for your example that you used there of your partner that was clumsy and used to say this to herself, that maybe was quite a conscious thing for that person. But then there are many people out there for things where they're very unconscious. You don't even know that you're saying this to yourself, or you don't know that, your subconscious is affecting your life in that way. It's quite a deep inquiry. So how do you discover those things that are holding you back?
Great question. I think one of the ways to do that is to think about what is it that you want to do. Think about what is it you want to do, and then to ask yourself why you haven't already got it.
Right.
Why you haven't already got it. Okay. Now, there's only two things, and all the stuff that we can talk about and all the models of transformation, there's only two things that are holding us back typically. And the first one is a thought, which could be called a decision, which could be called a belief, which could be called, when it's not helping us, it's like a little evil gremlin, or a critical voice, or that other part of me that I don't like, that holds me back. It has a voice, right? So it has a language. So the one way is that it has a voice, and the second way is there's a feeling. There's a feeling. So if you were to say, okay, I want to get X, Y, Z, this is what I want, and I haven't managed to get there yet. You say, well, why haven't you got there yet? And you just brainstorm, you list out all of these things. You'll find, if you just allow your subconscious to say, why I haven't got it, it will just give you all the juice. It will give you a lot of the stuff that you don't know about, so to speak. It will start to pour out. And then you can look down that list and you go, okay, there's something called the Pareto principle, where like 80% of something will give you 20% of the results, or 20% of something will give you 80% of the results. So we can use this in terms of emotional stuff as well. We can say, okay, out of that lot there, what's the little ones, the 2 or 3 at the bottom or at the top, what are those 2 or 3 things that actually is most of the stuff? That's most of the stuff. So then we want to look at, is it a feeling, or is it something that we're saying to ourselves? And whichever one of those is, then that's where we need to work. We need to dissolve that idea or clear that feeling in our body. The feeling is usually in our heart, sort of chakra area, or our sternum, or somewhere here, quite a lot with people, sometimes in the belly, sometimes in the head. But there's a feeling that's like holding us back. And that's where we need to do the work. That's where we need to get help and support, coaching, therapy, or whatever, to get it out of the way, or work with, like my system that actually clears these things out of the way. Because if we don't know what the problem is, we can't fix it. A problem well defined is a problem half solved. The biggest problem is with people when we are struggling is that we don't know what the problem is. So we're trying to fix something that we can't find. That's where, so that question will help us gather awareness, give us more insight. And remember, as I said earlier, insight leads to changing the goals with eyesight.
Absolutely. One thing that you mentioned that was really important about changing those goals is setting some new habits you need to integrate into your life. Can you give us any good examples of habits that we can do right now to help us through this time and get us?
I think that's a lovely idea. So I think through this time, I think the most important thing we need to do is to breathe. And I know that sounds a little bit silly in some ways, but this is actually really, really, really important, because we've got 3 parts of our brain. We've got a primal part that deals with primal instincts. We've got an emotional part that may trigger that primal part and make us want to run or go into fight or flight response, or maybe react unfairly, or maybe judge others because they don't see the world the way we do. And then there's the logical part, which sort of just confabulates, which basically means it just makes up reasons why we reacted the way we just did, right? So in times of stress, what we need to do is get rid of stress, which is actually going to the opposite stress, which is deeper breathing. So we can do something very simple right now as a little exercise. Okay. So all we need to do, and this is really, really simple, is to just, you can do this with me, Shay. So you focus your attention on your heart. Get into your body and breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose to start with, like 4 or 5 times. Breathing in deeply and breathing out deeply. And it should sound like, like the ocean's washing the shore when you're doing this properly. And this is about breathing and getting into your body. So it should sound a little bit like, we just do that like 5 times. And then once we get into our body, think about if there's any fear in your body, any fear in your heart, any fear around your solar plexus. And then just gently open your mouth as you breathe out and purse your lips and just breathe out. Just like, and just breathe in through the nose and then just breathe out. And this is really, as you just do that, and continue doing that while I'm talking to you, if you like, just a couple more times, Shay. This is really just about getting back into your body, knowing that you're safe in this moment right now, that you're okay, that we don't need the other minds interacting with us. We don't need to be freaking out about anything. We can just be in the moment, get more into our body and less in our mind, more into our body in peaceful state, because it's that peaceful body mind that's going to help us create in a good way rather than going down that fear line. So how did you find that? What did you notice when you did it?
I feel a lot more relaxed already, actually. Yeah.
So it's really simple, but when we go through stress, we forget to breathe.
Yes, of course.
To breathe properly. It's the same thing what happens for someone who smokes, that the nicotine like freaks their body out a bit, so they breathe from the top part of their lung. But this is what we do when we're stressed. So whatever's happening on the outside, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what we can deal with on the inside in terms of what we can take control of. We can take control of our breathing. We can do hypnosis. We can do meditation. We can pay attention to our diet and eat healthy foods. We can drink water. There's things that we can do. And if we can set, what you measure will, increase. So if you could say, look, I'm going to set my alarm every 2 or 3 hours and just breathe for 5 breaths and teach my body to remember to breathe. These things are really, really simple. But what happens is, let's imagine 0 to 10, 7 out of 10. When you get to 7, you stress out and you go wrong. And you're at 6. And then you just do this exercise and it takes you down to 5.
Yeah.
That means that when your child does something that you don't want it to do, or something happens with an email, you don't go into fight or flight and you don't lose yourself. So it's a really simple, powerful exercise. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, I do have massage without hands, the treatment that you experience as well, which will really take people into a deep level of letting all this stuff go, so to speak.
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful. I've got kind of a big question for you. I don't know if you're going to be, you probably will be able to answer this, but I was just fascinated when you said this. And it's that force within us that forces us to stay within the identity that we've defined for ourselves. And that's why it's so hard to break through. Why is that? Why do humans do that?
Well, typically we become what we're told. And we think what we're told is true. So 0 to 7, we're taking on board. You've heard, I'm sure, the analogy of like a sponge. Our brain is just like a little sponge. We take on board the culture of the environment that we live in. We take on board the attitudes of our mom or dad or anyone who acts as such growing up. So ultimately we get defined by these things. and in order to wake up, we need to notice what we've been defined as. We need to pay attention to the scripts we've got running.
Yeah.
And notice, I go back to my message, that no matter what you've been told, no matter what you've been, imprinted with, whatever you've been told when like when I say imprinted, I mean literally like, your brain gets printed on, this is who you are, this is what you do, you need to be a doctor, or you need to be a solicitor, or this is what we do in this house, or you can't be that because of this. And we take on board this model, or this version of reality. It's a little bit like a pair of spectacles that we start seeing our reality through. And this reality isn't a true reality. It's just it's a projection. So the first thing we always need to do, and I say this with my program, because awareness is the essential step to your transformation. Our job is to keep waking up, and then getting the help and support, or the programs or the systems to remove what doesn't help us. So and any program is just a program. Just like, we get a virus on our computer, with the right technologies that we've got access to now and the right person delivering them, we can make massive change, and we can rewrite the script just like a Hollywood blockbuster. We can change the sad ending at the end to a really good one.
Good. We're glad to hear it. So I think that's a lovely thought for people to remember. Really, your life could be that Hollywood blockbuster, and if you want it to be like a rom-com or a full-on romance or an adventure, it can happen. It's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is our projection, like there's this analogy that all our problems are problems of imagination, and all our solutions are solutions of our imagination. Because no matter what's going out on the outside world, how awful or amazing or brilliant it is, we can then internalize it and change it. Yeah. So we can be on a brilliant holiday on the beach, it's a 5-star hotel, you're lying there thinking, this is crap, I'm going to go home. Yeah. Or we can be having a terrible experience with lots of challenges like we are now, and think, actually, I'm going to use this in a way of introspection. And of course, there's another thing I just want to add is, like, we don't want to kid ourselves as well. This isn't about just like playing a stupid game here. We have to honor ourselves if we get sad. We have to allow the tears to come, because a lot of people are grieving right now. We're going through a grieving process, and people don't even recognize it or don't share it. It's okay if you're pissed off right now. It's okay if you're sad right now. It's okay if you're grieving right now. Be at one with your body, get in with your body, do the exercise like we just did a little bit, and know that whatever you're going through is okay for you. If you're sat at home and you're trying to homeschool kids, then maybe this is not the time to try and do something else and create a new business. And, like, you might not have the space for that. Yeah. If you're sat at home bored and lonely and you've had that idea and been sitting on for 5 years, maybe this is the time you've got to kick up the ass and you go and do it. Yeah. But we all have different external experiences, and we all have different realities. And then it's like, how do we use that external reality, our own real world that we're living in, and do what's right for us, I think is really important. This isn't about like, oh, it's all right for you, put a smiley face on. I'm not saying that. It's about, this is about tuning into your body, getting more present, and then building from there. And it might be one little tiny step to, today I'm going to wake up and, I'm actually going to get dressed today. You know what I mean? And that's
fine. Oh my God, I've achieved something already.
Like, because a lot of people are not getting dressed right now, and that's fine. Like, who says we were supposed to get dressed?
Okay, I love you guys. You're out in there in your pajamas and stuff. You're all welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us today?
Any final thoughts? I'd just love to say that, wherever you are right now, whatever you're going through, it's okay. And be true to that and honor all parts of us. Don't think, if I'm afraid, don't say I'm afraid and use the I am afraid thing. Just notice your language, wake up, say, there's a part of me that's afraid right now. And that's okay. There's a part of me that's grieving. That's okay. There's a part of me that's really angry right now. Your language will be listened to by your subconscious. So be mindful of what you say to yourself and use it in the right way. Don't dishonor it. Don't ignore it. Don't push it away. Just say, a part of me is feeling this. And then guess what? That part of will have had it say, there's a part of you that's afraid, there's a part of you that's crying, but then you'll get back more into center. But don't try and push away your emotions, no matter what's going on in the world right now, what's ever happened in your past, what's happening in your future, or right now in your present. Always remember that no matter what's happened to you, that you are good enough, that you are lovable, and if it's humanly possible, it's possible by you.
I love it. How can our lovely audience get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Okay, they can go to 7waystoconfidence.com, 7waystoconfidence.com. There's some information about my 7 Ways to Confidence and Success system there. And if they want to find my personal website, they go to confidentandcharismatic.com.
Oh,
They don't need to use the voice either. They can.
that's a wonderful. That's a wonderful you. I didn't know you had that one. That's a wonderful you.
I've been hiding it. I've just brought it out of the cupboard for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm honoured. So we'll stick all of those on facebook.com/inspired stage, where we'll also put this video. And in the meantime, thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to see you again. And when you're allowed to travel to England again, we'll get together. And
Thanks for inviting me.
yeah, sending lots of love.
I hope it was valuable for someone, and someone just got a little boost. That would make this worthwhile right now, especially in these times.
I'm sure. Lots of love.